Hello, this is Amy Zawi for the Friday, February 3rd Jerusalem Connection Report Red Alert. BDS and world bodies. The truth is being recognized. Last week, a study about the EU revealed that it is unwittingly or unknowingly supporting BDS activities around the world. The European Union offers a significant amount of funding to NGOs, non-governmental organizations, who provide humanitarian efforts around the world. Many of these groups provide humanitarian aid, or so they say, in Gaza, in Samaria, and in Israel, and in other places around the Middle East. However, these groups will use the guise of humanitarian efforts to propel a political agenda, which is an anti-Israel agenda. Because of murky bookkeeping laws and difficult audit trails, money with the best of intentions designed to aid or grant to organizations the ability to help people are indeed going to organizations that do not want to help anybody, but ironically seek to hurt a particular group of people, that is the Jews. That said, money will always find a sinister trail. Corruption will always reach its way into even the best of intentions, but we need to be vigilant. Israel has asked the EU to please have greater transparency in the source of their funding for NGOs, as well as the audit to its outcome. So far, the EU has refused, saying it would quell freedom of speech and expression by donors. So the problem is not solved, but it is recognized as such because the EU as a body actually does claim to condemn BDS activities. BDS is boycott, divest, and sanction, and it is a form of political and economic pressure put on the state of Israel to achieve a political agenda. In addition, BDS activities on college campuses are getting some robust opposition. An article released just one day before the EU studies says that BDS is in real trouble, even though it found its foothold in U.S. and Canadian universities over 27 states and at the provincial and national levels in the U.S. and Canada. Laws outlawing it are on the books. Moreover, the business communities are not buying into the ruse. Businesses are finding that investments with Israeli companies are yielding great outcomes. It's good for the balance sheet, it provides excellent services and innovations for the world, and the people in the Middle East, in Israel, regardless of their religious origin or their ethnic origin, are benefiting from the investments and the increased work. Fordham University last week actually condemned or refused the SJP, the Students for Justice for Palestine, on having one of their activities on the Fordham campus because its agenda, Fordham's review board said, was overtly anti-Semitic. I reported last month about a bill in the United States Congress to take a State Department statute on what anti-Semitism is and apply it to the Department of Ed as a statutory baseline for examining and judging activities on college campuses in the U.S. This law was unanimously passed by the U.S. Senate in early January. It's interesting that some of the leadership at UC Irvine have perked up in opposition to this bill, when indeed it is the activities at UC Irvine in 2016 that were most alarming and led to the initial addressing of this issue at the Senate level. The Student for Justice in Palestine group also voiced its opposition to this bill, which is so ironic since Fordham University independently assessed the situation for the activities on its campus and told them no, it's anti-Semitic activities. The bill is entitled the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, and it indeed provides some distinct measure for analyzing whether an activity or movement on a campus would be anti-Semitic or not. One of the concerns by UC Irvine and the Students for Justice for Palestine is that the law would allow any criticism of Israel to be construed as anti-Semitism. But that is clearly not the case because the law is quite concrete. There are four particular points to address it. Anti-Semitism will be recognized if there's a calling for aiding or justifying the killing or harming of Jews, accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust, demonizing Israel by blaming it for all interreligious and political tensions, judging Israel by a double standard that one would not apply to another democracy. These are all very concrete and demonstrable measures by which one can look at an activist group on campus and judge whether it is violating one of those or propelling one of those edicts. The BDS movement has a loud and influential voice, and while progress is being made to make it more and more unpopular, we can't sit back and rest. The work is not done yet. Getting the truth and the context of Israel in history, Jews throughout history, as well as the modern history of Israel and the Jewish people is important. It's important for human rights issues, for economic issues, as well as for spiritual issues. I encourage you to take time this week to read Isaiah chapter 49, the entire chapter, not just the one verse, verse 6, which is relatively famous about Israel being a light on a hill to the Gentile nations. While this is an important verse, if you read it the entire context of the chapter, you will see it from God's point of view. Israel is despised, Israel is forgotten, Israel is a decimated land, but then it is a restored land and a restored peoples. It is very powerful, and it will give you optimism and hope and offer you some incentive to continue your own good work, to praying for Israel and its people around the world, the Jewish people, as well as the leaders in all countries and the students on college campuses, and the best way to combat injustices against the nation of Israel and the Jewish people. Shavua Tov, have a great week, and Shabbat Shalom.